Hi, everyone. Welcome. I want to mention some closed captioning information to you first. So that we do have closed captioning and it's available. And all you have to do is select the closed caption icon at the lower right corner of your screen. And since this is an automated service, we apologize in advance for any errors in the transcription. So I'm Tanya Autry. I am the descendant of enslaved people, and I'm living here on the ancestral lands of the Erie and the Haudenosaunee people. And it's an area that is at the present known by settlers as Cleveland, Ohio. I am a cultural organizer in the arts and the Gund Curator-in-Residence at moCa Cleveland, and also the curator of Imagine Otherwise. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this program. I want to tell you about the show a little bit, and then I'm going to run into introducing the fabulous artists in here. So this show is working with a book by Christina Sharpe called In the Wake on Blackness and Being. And this quote is at the center of this exhibition. What happens when we proceed as if we know this anti-Blackness to be the ground on which we stand, the ground from which we to attempt to speak, for instance, an I or a we who know, an I or a we who care. So that's from Christina Sharpe. So I use this book to kind of create this exhibition, and what Imagine Otherwise is about is expressing the kind of boundless and real fierceness of Black imagination and love, despite ongoing anti-Blackness. And we have 4 artists in the show: Keith, Imani Dennision, Amber N. Ford, and Antoine Washington. Our exhibition is multimedia and it spotlights Black pathways to self-determination and collective liberation. We have photography, sculpture, mixed media work, video-based installations, and it's really about a navigation, this kind of what Christina Sharpe calls wake work, operating, like moving past anti-Blackness and beyond the kind of representational politics that we often see. Their work basically interrogates the spatial and temporal tensions of disenfranchisement, resistance, memory, visibility, loss, reinvention across Black cultures. So that's a lot. And I feel like it could sound like it's really complicated, but it's not. It's basically, these are, artists that are showing how Black people find ways always to kind of make it through as much as we can. And we find ways to love ourselves and one another. And some of us really do create a sense of community. We are the we, the I or the we who know, the I or we who care. So when I was creating this show, thinking with that text, I thought, like, which artists out there are really doing this work? And these are some of the people that I feel very, very honored to be able to work with. And so tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Imani Dennision, Amber N. Ford, and Antoine Washington. Those are 3 of the 4 artists. Our colleague Keith is not able to join us tonight. I do want to share a little bit about these brilliant people. Imani Dennision is a multi-hyphenate creative born in Louisville, Kentucky. She graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C., where she studied political science and photography. She has been working as a cinema photographer based in Brooklyn, New York, where she has lensed short films, documentaries, branded campaigns, and music videos. Her work explores themes of surrealism, Blackness, and fantasy. I came to know Imani's work actually from Instagram. I want to say it was Instagram, and it was through Black Rhizomes of Count. So shout out to Black Rhizomes. You should follow them. So yeah, I saw Imani's work there, video No Mas, and that's in the exhibition. So we'll hear a little bit more about that in a bit. Amber N. Ford is an artist based here in Cleveland, Ohio. She got her degree in photography from the Cleveland Institute of Art, only kind of recently, 2016. She's interested in race and identity, and she's really known for her work in portraiture, which she considers a form of, like, what she calls collaborative engagement between the photographer and sitter. Her work has been featured in exhibitions at Kent State University, Transformer Station, Spaces Gallery, the Morgan Conservatory, Cleveland Print Room, Zygo Press, Waterloo Arts. It's also been an outdoor public space. I came to know Amber actually soon after I started at moCa Cleveland, I believe. I think it was just a few months. So that was in 2019, and I've been really impressed with her work. So I'm really happy to kept it in my mind. I'm really happy to be able to work with her for this exhibition. Antoine Washington is originally from Pontiac, Michigan. He's a family man that lives and works here in Cleveland, Ohio. He has studied Black history and art at, where is it, Southern University and A&M College in Baton Rouge. I might be saying that wrong because I think I say that wrong all the time. Baton Rouge, is that how you say it? Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And he is very interested in kind of the legacy. He's following the legacy of the Harlem Renaissance artists such as Ramar Bearden, Elizabeth Catlett, and Jacob Lawrence. He's exhibited widely at many places: Cleveland Print Room, Worthington Arts, Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, Rooms to Let, Artist Archives. He's had public art murals on view, Cleveland Public Square. Just last year, Antoine co-founded the Museum of Creative Human Art, a nonprofit organization centered on teaching art. And I met Antoine, I think just last year, actually, early part of last year, maybe in January. I have been peeping his art on Instagram already. So then I got to meet him, and yeah, very excited about working with him. And also just was so excited that he started his own museum. So that was also part of this like interest for me for working with Antoine. So I did share with you that quote and about how basically Black people, how we persist, how we create our kind of own knowing and caring Black communities, and how we exist kind of through and beyond anti-Blackness. Tonight, I was hoping that we as a group with the Amber, Antoine, and Imani can talk a little bit about a few themes. And one of them is storytelling, thinking about storytelling as a form of connection, a form of power, thinking about geography, how we explore space, place, how we make space, also thinking about materials, how we, how they make their work, that kind of thing. So that is the overview. You're welcome if you would like. I don't know if we're not going to really officially do a question and answer kind of period, but if you would like to ask a question, you can put it in the chat feature, and we will be kind of looking out for questions and try to weave things in as we can through the discussion. But yeah, let's get going here because I'm just so excited, you guys. And I start talking really fast when I get excited, so I'm gonna try to calm down a little bit. Okay, now I'm calming. So storytelling, I think really with everybody's work in the show, that storytelling, narrative, kind of thinking about memory is part of everybody's work in some way. And I was wanting to just kind of kick it off like that, like if you all could think about or share, how do you feel about narrative and how you maybe that's an influence in your work early, why you take it on, how you express it in the particular work in the show, or otherwise, basically. So it's just open for anybody.
Well, I'll say, as far as like narrative, for me, it was kind of just me taking my own personal experiences and building and being a Black maker here in America and seeing like the history of what Black people have been through and trying to make our own way. And it just reminded me of hip hop, like how we had to take nothing and turn it into something, and now we have like this $1 billion industry that people are pretty much all cultures and all over the world. It has expanded and benefited from it from nothing. And so me taking that idea and actually putting it into my concept and how me building the Museum of Creative Human Art, my organization, I kind of like took that whole idea and kind of looked and played off of that narrative of making nothing and turning it into something. I mean, having nothing and turning it into something. So that's kind of like where I kind of started when I started to create the work.
That's wonderful. I'm gonna definitely come back and ask you some more questions about it because I know you are like real into the storytelling, Antoine. So I know you can talk for this all night. But I also want to hear Imani and Amber talk about storytelling. And I know Amber, I know you do a lot of work. You do the portraiture work. Some of this is moving into like kind of a documentary kind of focus. And other things. You've got a lot going on. So I was wondering if you could talk about that, and also like maybe some influences, because I don't know about that. Like with you, I don't know about like how you got started with that kind of interest.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I kind of I kind of like think and like go back to when I did like my BFA defense over at CIA. Um, Title In Between. If people aren't familiar with that work, they can visit my website. But the bulk of that work is where I started to really dive into portraiture. And I decided to take that year and focus on photographing Black males specifically because um, I like wanted to kind of change the narrative, and I wanted to create images that I wanted to kind of see out in the world versus what I felt like I was seeing a lot of, which were like negative images of Black males and things like that. So like my goal, and I think reasoning for like starting that series was because like I wanted to create the images that I wanted to see. So um for that particular series and for I would say like a lot of my portrait work, I really try to have it a little bit more of a collaborative process because I want the sitters or and individuals in the images to have say so of like what's being like how they're being photographed and like where a lot of people that I'm photographing, the location, I try to make it like significant to who that person is, just to be able to tie into maybe the narrative or story aspect of the image and whatnot. And like you said, like I kind of do a lot of things. So over the past couple of years, branching a little bit out of portraits, but still doing photography and using like cyanotype, which is an alternative photographic process, or using I don't know if some people know this, but like if you've seen the exhibition and you saw the wall mural, I make those work by using the scanner bed as my photographic tool, um, and to document this hair, which for me is kind of like a documentation of this memory, which is a hairstyle that I had once had. So the titles of those works are usually the title of like, or the name of that hairstyle. So like passion twist or two layers. Sometimes they're wigs that I've purchased and, you know, things like that. So I kind of think within all of my work, whether it's the hair fields or portraits, or if it's just me kind of going back to how I started way back in high school, which documenting for the fun of the art form, just document like what's out there, what I see, what catches my eye, and just kind of making this archive of like the things that are around me. It all kind of connects in, and at the end, like yeah, tells a story, and it's just like a recording of my memories. Yeah.
Thank you, Amber. Yeah, I'm going to come back about that because I think there's a lot to that about like hair, how hair has a memory, how it's got stories just in our hair, right? I think there's a lot to say with that. And I think when we come back to it, I'm going to ask our Corey, our tech person, to bring up some pictures too, so we can kind of go back with that. But I think I read somewhere where somebody talked about hair has a memory, and I don't know, I might be making it up. I might be thinking about Toni Morrison talking about water has a memory, but hair has a memory too. So we'll talk about that. Hair definitely has, black hair definitely got a memory. We're gonna come back to that. But Imani, I want to hear you talk a little bit about storytelling because I know you got a lot going on.
Yeah, I do have a lot going on. But storytelling for me, it started from young. I think. I mean, I come from like a family of storytellers, like deep history of family of storytellers. So, I think it was just kind of like a destined thing to be connected with. But I think also, similarly to Amber, like storytelling, a lot for me is memory too. But I pull a lot from dreams, like dreams really have influenced the way I tell stories or like my interest in storytelling. So I guess like that is also like memory because like, you know, dreams to me are just like portals from, you know, of like the subconscious or like, you know, lives lived, but memory, you know, above all, I guess. Um, so, you know, yeah, like from young, I was making like, you know, like little photo books of like, you know, the toilet paper family and we like craft things together, like, and then, you know, um, just matriculation through life and like just so many experiences being had. It's just like, you know, I don't know, like storytelling is just like one of those things that is just, like, it just feels like in my DNA, like in a way that I can't escape. And it's becoming easier to like communicate like the stories, like stories that I have like woven in me, whether it be like from memory, like, my grandma telling me like stories, or just talking or singing, or, I'm from Kentucky, so I'm like I'm born and raised in Kentucky. So like, and sorry, there's an airplane passing by now, so it might be a bit loud, but like, even, the smell of like grass in Kentucky, or like nuanced moments, like, like mild racism, but also just like a bunch of like bumpkin Black people, like, who are just beautiful and like have all these, just like have just so much. It's like, I don't know. I'm all ramble. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, essentially just memories and like experiences that are just imprinted into me, like really influenced the way that I tell stories and my general interest around storytelling.
I like how you were talking about, this is all starting very early for you as a kid. And I know Antoine works with youth. That's a big part. Like, Antoine shared a quote with me about his business, about the museum is inspiring the next generation of artists. He works with a lot of really young people. And I actually wanted to talk a little bit about that, like, where the art starts, the stories start, because I'm hearing that the stories are starting pretty early for us, right? They're starting kind of as a kid, and think about memories and just like the importance of that. I was wondering, Antoine, if you could talk a little bit more about like the youth that you work with and how you're sharing stories with them. I know you're teaching them about Black artists and so forth.
Yeah. I'm similar. It's a similar kind of thing too with myself. Is I kind of take them through a series of like I'll say like exercises where they're able to breathing exercises actually, and just getting them to get comfortable with sharing things that may be personal or may not be personal, or things that's going around in their neighborhoods or that's going around in their life. And so teaching them how to express themselves through art is one of the main things that I feel that is important, because a lot of times you can learn a lot from these kids just by allowing them to express themselves through creativity. And so I've I've taken that approach a lot with a lot of the youth that I work with, because it's, I mean, a lot of kids are geniuses and we just don't even know it because we don't tap into them. And so I tend to take that approach with a lot of them, and being able to like get them to express themselves in that way. But I would say like showing them Black artists, but not only showing them Black artists, showing them what those Black artists expressed in their work, and so they can be also free and not institutionalized so young when they go off to college and go into those institutions. I want to be able to and put inside of them some type of way, some form of freedom away from that, and them to find themselves and find their voices early within their practice. And so I think that's been one of the most gratifying things that I have done with a lot of my students and a lot of my young people. I mean, I teach 6-year-old kids, and the way that they stand up in front of the class and express their art and how they how they feel, and how they feel even in these dark times when we're going through the pandemic, or when we're going through police brutality. I mean, believe it or not, they see what's going around and they know how they feel, and they just never get. We always look past them and worry about how our peers feel in this time in the moment, but a lot of these kids, they're going through it too, and they're feeling the effects of it through conversations they're listening to with adults and parents and people talking around them. And I know usually I remember when I was coming up, my grandmother and elders used to say, kids are kids are kids are I can't remember the actual quote, but pretty much like you pretty much don't have a voice. Like you go over there, get out the room. Grown folks are talking. I'll say that. And but in this case, I think we take a different approach and allow them to express themselves and try to take, try to let them do their thing.
Yeah, I know how that is, where the grown people push the kids over here. I grew up
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. Like, you
yeah.
don't have anything to say in this space.
Don't
You
have
do not
to
talk to grown
say.
people. Yes, yeah, they were kind of old school like that. But thinking with that, it makes me think about Amber. I think if we could bring out like maybe the image of the installation over at ThirdSpace where we can see like most of the pictures up on the wall. Because Amber, I find it so interesting with you is that there's a story with like, you know, every subject, you have a relationship to these subjects, right? These people, right? The people that you're taking photographs with. And I thought that was really interesting because you know, I've already shared how you kind of talk with them about how do they feel, like, you know, you ask them, you know, what you tell them about what to wear. I'm hoping you could talk about that a little bit more. And maybe if you wanted to talk about a specific one, we could bring up, you know, that image in particular.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so like you said, a lot of mostly probably all the people I photograph, like if I'm photographing like for like a series, tend to be a friend or a family, or I have like connection to them somehow, whether there's like a mutual friend and things like that. So I like to work with like friends and family a lot because we already have this kind of like built connection, and I think it just makes the process just that much organic and that much more special and like easier to like work through and to work together and whatnot. These photographs, portraits, and like the cyanotypes have all kind of been made in various like points of time over the last like couple of years. And so can you actually maybe go to the one with the floral do-rag maybe image? I think we might have yeah. So the image on the left is my friend Justin, who went to CIA with me, and I kind of wanted to create. I had this idea of creating this image that one, I was experimenting with like the different ways we can think of portraits and how can we still try to capture the essence of a person without showing their face. So I was experimenting with like photographing my friend from behind, but picking this kind of floral do-rag, which I thought kind of still pointed towards like how his personality is, which is, I feel like, I don't want to ramble. I'm trying to gather my thoughts as I'm saying them. But like this idea that, you know, we live in a world where Black males are pushed to be overly masculine beings, right? And like, you know, they shouldn't have any sense of like femininity or sense of sensitivity and things like that. So I feel like a lot of my friends are like pushing against the social norms. And I thought photographing him within this kind of floral do-rag, and this image is called Velvet Waves, kind of spoke to that. The person on the right is my little cousin Shalaire, my beautiful cousin that I'm absolutely in love with her fro. But photographing her kind of like in this studio setting and using colors to kind of express like the warmth and the like joy, like I think like orange and like this soft pink color that you can see kind of on the side of her face kind of speak to, once again, like what type of person that I kind of have experienced out of her. She's also an artist as well too. She's a painting major. But I feel like I'm rambling. Did I get to the core part of the question that you asked?
Yeah, I think so. I like, you know, what I like about this series in particular, well, several things. One of the things is I like that with each, I feel like with every work where there's a person that we see, so not the detailed, the cyanotypes, but when the ones with the sitters, is that there's this kind of exploration of the gaze. And I think about, so you were talking about that, you know, there's certain kind of whatever heteronormative kind of policing or something, but also I would say, you know, the hyper visibility also, but the invisibility of Black folks seems to, like, in this society, this anti-Black society that we're in, I feel like the gaze in so many of these people, like how they have this angle, kind of how they look at the camera, they kind of gaze at you, but it's also like I feel like when I see it, maybe it's just my imagination, but I feel like, you know, they're very powerful figures, and they look like, don't even come over here with any bullshit. Like, that's the look I get from the figures, and I love it. Like, each time it's like a little intimidating, I have to say, but I love it because I know in a way, like, what people have to put on to go outside, how to go outside and to live your life. And so I feel like the subjects kind of do that. And then I like this one with the do-rag where it's flipped. So you don't get to see this figure. There's that refusal of being under the lens of being inspected. Like that's kind of what I think about here.
Yeah, yeah. I think that with like the two ways that you can like see me photographing, it's like this two sides where it's like I'm choosing to be seen and I'm choosing for you not to see me. And to me, having that choice is very important because I feel like there's so many aspects in our society where we don't have choices when we should, you know what I mean? So, and also kind of being portrayed in like a negative light. So like having a lot of my sitters, if you want to go to the full installation shot, Corey, you can see Shelly like just gazing like right at you. And I like kind of like my viewers kind of looking at these images and seeing like I'm looking at this person, but like this person is also like looking back at me and kind of having that like, to me, for me, like it's a sense of confidence and a sense of like presence with like having the sitter, my friends, just look directly into the camera and not necessarily try to have them look overly joyous or overly angry, kind of like relaxed, but it's kind of like this very like strong presence, which, yeah.
Yeah, they're very much like in control. So Shelly is a figure in the pink, the hot pink blazer.
Yes.
And that image is like, boom, it's like, there. I mean, it's lots of stuff I like about this, and I want to keep talking about this because I like how you have the sienna types arranged around the figure, and I want to come back to that. But I also want to kind of move into this other area about geography. So that one of the things I love about this work, and I think this can move into this next section, is that the image, the mural is a that you made with this hair. And it, in a way, it seems like it's a geography in itself, that close up of the hair and the passion twist, right? And I kind of keep thinking about like what place and space means. And Imani got me really listening to Sun Ra a lot more. Like I used to listen, I had heard of, I've heard of Sun Ra, obviously, and I think I heard a few of the songs, but I wasn't really a Sun Ra fan. But then Imani kind of shared a quote that she loves. Where is it? I got it somewhere. Oh, it's right in front of me. I'm not real. I'm just like you. You don't exist in this society. If you did, your people wouldn't be seeking equal rights. You are not real. If you were, you'd have some status among the nations of the world. So we are both myths. I do not come to you as a reality. I come to you as the myth because that is what Black people are, myths. I came from a dream that the Black man dreamed long ago. I'm actually a presence sent to you by your ancestors. I mean, that's a whole lot. Like that's from Space is a Place. I feel like that's the storytelling, that's the myth stuff, that's the geography or this other world making. Imani, please, like let's talk about some space making, please. Let's talk about some space making.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, we have No Mas here pulled up on the screen. This is actually, oh, okay, nice. Yeah, so No Mas, I'll start with No Mas. No Mas is like a direct translation to like no more. And essentially like how this all came to be was that I was contacted by like a band that was like literally one of my favorites at the time, really playing like underground shows in like Philly and Brooklyn and like DC. Like a free jazz band named Irreversible Entanglements. And I just happened to be in South Africa at the time. And the composer, one of the composers, Achilles Navarro, who is a phenomenal musician and also part of the band, contacted me and was like, yo, like, we please, like, we want to work with you, which I'm like was wild about. And they were like, you know, like, would you be down to direct the music video? And I'm like, I love music videos. Like I love music video, but I also love just experimental cinema and like how that can like almost act as a soundtrack. So like, you know, like how it can like act as a soundtrack to visuals. So I asked to hear the song, I listened to it, and immediately for whatever reason, I just looped. I had it on loop, and like the lyrics of the song really, Kame's part where she's just like, she starts spitting her poetry. She's just like, talking, essentially about how we're like, we as like people of the diaspora, we Black people, we Africans, or however you identify, it's like no more, like we're like over it, and like we need to, like, just essentially how we're so like trapped here, or just essentially like how we need to be making new waves, like we need to be pushing forward, like we don't, like no more like oppression, essentially, like just it's like completely denouncing it. So I listened to this, I really sat and marinated with the song, the lyrics, and immediately I was just like, you know what, like, what would it look like for diasporans, if that's a word, to to move to our own planet, to journey to journey to our own planet, like one that is not, one that is ours truly, and not influenced by colonialism, by whiteness, by.
Mm-hmm.
So I start sitting with these concepts, and there's always a lot of interesting conversations amongst like diasporic Africans, and then Africans who like have settled or been brought or stolen, and now displaced all around the world. Like there's always this like weird tinge, like it's a weird relationship sometimes where like you're never too much of anything, like you're it's really strange, you're not African enough, like but then like America's not all the way like feeling like home, and then like it just continues. So I'm like, yo, we need to just restart. Like, and I still think like this is still like one of my like hopes, one of those like romantic hopes, like we'll all just join together and literally either A, overthrow this thing, or B, just like literally go to our own planet, like make up our own things, our own rules, our own societies, because we can do it. So yeah, so this video, I kind of like, I start thinking like, yo, how can I, what does this look like? Like I'm on the continent, like I can't really direct anything. I can't fly back to New York to direct this thing. And I kind of like, I explained it. I was a little sour that I might have to pass up the opportunity, but then they were like, make it in Africa. And then I was like, okay. So literally like, I contacted a few friends and was like, look, there's this concept, like there's this idea. And even like trying to, explain it and like have, people understand it and be with it. It just happened quickly. It was like, everybody was like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Like I'm with it. So I shot this on multiple locations. Like I shot it and directed it. And yeah, essentially we shot this in maybe 6 locations all around South Africa, Free State, Johannesburg, but like it was a journey, but essentially like this is essentially following characters that are journeying together through time and space, essentially, like to reach that collective planet where everybody thrives, like where there's room. So really just like kind of like following, and really like focusing on love too, because like, love is part of it. It's truly like true love. And one thing that I also really, want to continue to like manifest for my work and just like life in general is like true love and like romance, but in work too, and just like what journeying together, whether it's platonic romance or romantic romance, like what it takes to really like push to where we need to go to is like love. It's like the answer for everything all the time.
Yeah, that's
so really yeah, that's that. That's
I love that you, I mean, basically everything you were just saying. And it's funny because I think at some point I was like this past summer, I was reading a lot of, I might have been reading Robin D.G. Kelly's book, Freedom Dreams. And I was thinking about, people, we do these studies about, Black liberation and stuff. And a lot of times we don't focus on the love. And, I think James Baldwin said this, like, Black people had to be loving themselves or we wouldn't be here as who we are right now. We wouldn't be here because of all this that we've endured. But somebody had to love on somebody, right? To get us here is a big part of that. And so the thing about trying to find our freedom, our liberation, we can't do that without love. And I think this work, so what you were just talking about really resonates with me because I only just more recently started thinking of my own curatorial work as a love practice. Like I've been thinking it's a care practice, but I'm like, it's actually a love practice too. It's a liberatory kind of thing. And to move towards the future, we need that kind of love in there. This focus on movement, in your video, there's a lot of movement. I know we just have stills right here. But the movement, it's got these just beautiful, like just, lyrical kind of movements in it. And I put a link to your website where people can go on and watch the video. Hopefully, if you didn't see it, if you haven't experienced the show, please come see it. Imani's work is over at ThirdSpace over in Glenville, ThirdSpace Action Lab. It's beautifully on display. Amber's work is also there. But you can also watch the video on Imani's website. And you really just should. It's hard to like stop. I just sometimes watch it. And the music is wonderful, that free jazz, the poetry, and just all of it is amazing. And this movement aspect, I think is so important because when you think about the diaspora of people moving and forced exile, moving across not just from the north to the south in the US, but we are people of the world. Black folks are everywhere. There's global Blackness, and Imani talks about that in her work. And I think when I think about movement, I think of Antoine. You could talk about the piece that you share with me about your grandfather's story. If we could bring that up on the screen. If you could talk about this piece a little bit here.
Yeah, and so that piece over there is called.
Whoops, go back.
Not that one. The one you had it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that one was based on the one in the corner there with the boots and the American flag, and that photo was representative of my grandfather, who actually was a slave on a Tennessee plantation. And so, but his dad was an actual slave on the plantation as well. But before he was born, his mother was a Native American. I forget what tribe. My grandmother constantly tells me, and I always forget. And so I think I need to record her the next conversation we have. But what happened was she was kidnapped. She was brought to this plantation and forced to mate with my grandfather. And so the representation of I'm speaking about my great grandfather, I think it's two greats, or maybe I don't know the great thing. I'm sorry, but the representation of that photo there is a representation of my dad's grandfather, who I guess would be my great grandfather. And what happened was when he was 5, he seen the plantation owner tried to rape his mother, and then he ended up choking her to death. So through that process, he had to live with that until he turned 17. And when he turned 17, he fought back, and he did the same thing to that plantation owner, and he was running for his life. But through that time, when he was growing up with his mother, she was teaching him how to eat from the land. Of course, his father was teaching him things as well, how to hunt and different things like that, how to get food, but also how to read the stars. So when you look at the photo when you're in space, you'll see the stars and stripes, which is representative of America. But however, the stars is also representative of how he was taught how to read the stars, and all of our ancestors who are, if you come from America and had ancestors that's from a plantation and that lived through slavery, then that's what they were taught to read the stars to find freedom in the North. And so that was also a metaphor within that photo and within that flag as well. But however, he ran, and I think for the course, I think she said a little bit of almost 2 years to the north. And he would sleep in the trees during the day, and then he would run at night. And so those boots there is representative of him running, and all of those ancestors that had to run for their lives and their freedom. That suitcase is the same because he had to work his way through during 1865 when they freed the slaves. They still had to run and try to find freedom because people were still kidnapping them and enslaving them. And so what he would do is he would work plantation to plantation to make money to travel. And of course he would go through what they would call the Underground Railroad and all of that. But I don't know all of the detail on that story. But however, that's what that is representative of in its totality. And so you will see like that even the button-up shirt over there is representative of the shirt that he wore when he was running. And so you will see the blood on it, but it's also representative of the blood, sweat, and tears through history that our ancestors went through to pretty much get get us to this point of freedom of what we think we perceive as freedom. And so that, that that's pretty much like the story of that and him running north and how my family and how I got to my family got to Detroit. And so he met my grandmother the same way my grandmother ran from a plantation in 1865 from Mississippi, and she had to go through the same thing, hide in wagons and work her way up. And they would stop in different towns and work on plantations and work and make money to get to the north, and they ended up meeting up top. And so that's pretty much that representation of that. So what you will see on the ground is you will see like fair housing, see freedom. You'll see all these things that we were promised throughout history through what we call reparations. So that's why you see the trillions on the photo because that's what it's owed. We owe over trillions of dollars, which money cannot really repay what has happened to our ancestors, my grandfather, my grandmother, everybody who's been on those plantations, and even today, it's still metaphorically what we're fighting for today, because we still haven't received those reparations. We still haven't received equitable things in this country. We're still talking about equity today. We're still talking about equality today. We're still talking about freedom today. We're still talking about fair housing today. So that's why you see the money and you see the representative of the forefathers and the presidents and stuff like that. So that whole installation in that corner is pretty much my life story and how I became who I am. Mm-hmm. And so that's my ancestral story right there from my grandfather and his whole fight of getting freedom and how what we perceive free and are we really free? Because when he got there, he had to still fight in this country.
Yeah, there's a that story. Every time you tell it, I heard that story now like maybe 3 times or 4 times, and I love it every time. I'm just like, dang, because this is the real stuff. People give you like, oh, that was a long time ago. I'm like, no, it's not, right? And the fact that yes, we actually, no, it's all that. I'm not gonna get on that start with that whole thing, but yeah, that's a thing. There is like a lot going on here. I love that what you've done is take these oral histories from your family and you translated them into your art. So you are doing all that oral histories are being recorded and documented in the works that you make, right? This assemblage, this kind of assembly of things. And there's a lot to say here. I mean, that piece in the back with the free, that mural in the back. And we talked when I was at the museum here at the Museum of Creative Human Art, you pointed out that how there's the rough lines around the arms and how you did that on purpose. That detail actually I just kind of love. Like I'm obsessed with that kind of focus. I wonder if you could talk about it just real quick, and then I do want to move on to talk about this practice of assembly a little bit and move on to Amber for a second. Okay. But if you could just talk about that real quick, because I think it's a really good point. And if we could bring up just a close-up of the mural that we see right now. We see it way at the end of this vista point, but if we could get a better shot of it, maybe. This is a little better.
Yeah. So you want me to speak more to like that detail of what I was talking about as far as like the focus in on the actual figure?
Yeah, and like, I think it's something about how you did this with it is about assembly too, because the whole thing of your installation is really all about that. But of all of the pieces, all of the works in this space. But I think in this mural, what I liked is that you had that detail around the hands, and you said how you did that on purpose to not make them smooth and try to make them perfect, because you were conveying something through that detail. I just wonder if you could talk about it a little bit. Unfortunately, I don't think we took a photo. We have a photo in here that goes real close up on that, unfortunately.
Not
Sorry.
real close. Right. Well, what I did essentially, like when I drew the picture, I knew that usually I draw things in really, really high detail, but this time I kind of wanted it to be like more of a sketch, where if you the further you get away from it, the more it will seem like it's refined. But the more and more you get closer to that mural there, it becomes pixelated, and you can see all of the imperfections that I left in it. And I did that on purpose because the fight for freedom isn't perfect. So that's the reason why, like, free is kind of like block, because it's still asking that question, like I was saying in the previous explanation of the installation of my grandfather, about my grandfather. Are we really free? So the question throughout this whole exhibition is all about me. Are we really free? Mm-hmm. Because so that's the reason. So when you get closer up on it, I wanted to leave like the pixelation, the imperfections around the hands and different things like that, which a normal graphic designer would go in and clean that up. But me, I wanted to leave it in. Yeah, it looks like it's clean. It's a clean, clear fight for freedom. But then the further you get in on the fight, you see how nasty it is, and you see how rough and rugged that fight is. And so I wanted to actually be able to leave the viewer with that mind frame of thinking and knowing that it's not going to be an easy fight, and it hasn't been an easy fight. And if we don't fight a little harder, then we're going to leave this fight up to our kids, and that's the reason why I have her represented there.
Thank you. It's about I love that, and there's this that detail and how you put these pieces together, and I think there's this kind of point about inheritance that you're talking about in here. I think really with everybody talking about, it makes me think. I think that weaves in really good with the point I wanted to make with Amber, thinking about your alignment of like those cyanotypes. I just find those so interesting. If we could go back to that real quick. I know we're running out of time, but I do want to go back to that. And if we could bring back the image of where we see the whole installation. Yeah, this one I think is nice because Amber, you kind of came up with this display. So originally when I reached out to Amber about this installation, I asked her to show the Results May Vary series, which Passion Twitch is one of 5 or something in that series. And I thought we would put them on a white wall. And so that background it was one of these works. So it was like 24 by 36. And Amber came up with, she said she wanted to make a mural and make one of those works become the background, which I see it as kind of this geography. And then you had these other photographs that you wanted to layer on top. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like why you arranged them the way you did and what you see that relationship as, like the cyanotypes or monoprint next to the photography.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the first time I've kind of displayed work in this way. Like I've had a photographic mural before over at the Transformer station, but it was just like one image by itself. But I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of like, I feel like go outside of like the box or how I would normally kind of just frame an image and put it on the wall and see like how can I play with the relationship with this work that I feel like goes under this umbrella kind of theme and concept that I've been kind of like working on for the past couple of years that have kind of always been like separate. So I decided to kind of combine like the 3 different elements that I hadn't before, and just kind of like see like how like they work together on the wall. I think that having Passion twist the hair feel kind of in the background, how the hair is, really gave me a lot of leeway and room to any and all the images that I wanted to put on top of it. Because I don't know if necessarily having like something like the 2-layer as a black background, which are like kind of linear braids, would work in the same way. I think that would change the overall installation, not necessarily in a bad way, but I think the overall installation would have probably been arranged differently based on just like how that hair is in that image. But so I decided to kind of arrange kind of like the cyanotypes and the photographs because I didn't, in this way, because I didn't want them to continue feeling separate. Like I said, how I've always kind of have displayed or kind of thought of them and wanted to mix them up and intertwine them, even though I do see them all as individual pieces. I think that they all still fit together. The cyanotypes for me feel like more of a study or more of a detail of like, not necessarily like the photograph specifically, but like the cyanotype in the bottom left corner on this image is from one of like the strands of hair from the passion twist, but laid out on this cyanotype paper and exposed in the sun. And then the one above, which is a little bit harder to see, is um, it's, I always forget which one it is because I'm always confused, but it's a printmaking process. It's either called a monotype or a monoprint, used with hair. And you can see, this one's a really good one, I would say, to see like in person. One, because I don't have it like in the digital realms, like you can't like view it like on my website or on my Instagram or anything like that, but like in person, like you really have to get up and be able to see, like you can really see those individual hair strands that were imprinted on that paper as it was running through the printing press and things like that. If you go to maybe one of the other images, I think with the one with Shelley, yeah, so you see on the left side of Shelley, there's three, I think they may maybe like 5x7 or 4x6 cyanotypes, and then there's the one at the bottom. And these are a mixture of also like using hair to create these compositions, which, like I said, I feel like because I'm photographing people and hair is like kind of one of the focal points, they feel like kind of like details to kind of like just get like a closer look. And or I'm using hair accessories. So the bottom one on the left right next to Shelley is an arrangement of like rubber bands. And the one right below it is a line of like bobos or hair ties or whatever you might have called them when you were growing up. But usually, you put them in like little girls' hair to like decorate and things like that. So yeah, so they just kind of feel like extensions of the portraits, and also kind of like feel like details of like this overarching like theme and concept that I'm really interested in, because it's a big part of like my personal life. I try to make work, or I make work that means something to me, that I'm comfortable with, that is like a part of my work, which is a lot why most of my work, all my work is about Black people or people of color, and specifically now a lot of it has been about hair, because yeah, it's been like a big part of my life. It's been a big headache of my life, but now I feel like in my adult life, it's been a much more like love relationship, and figuring out like how my like natural curls and hair texture, like what it needs, and how can I give it, TLC, and treat it good so it can be good to me, and all those things.
Thank you, Amber. Yeah, so much in there, and you're kind of making me recall this quote. This is from Toni Morrison. I do believe my whole life is a geography. I'm thinking about that because I'm thinking about that background, that how the passion twist is on there, the relationship of the cyanotypes, that kind of looking closely at the hair, about this kind of thing about like your life and kind of the natural hair journey that some of us have gone on in that process of learning how to take care of your hair. I mean, it's kind of scary, and I think it's kind of sad. I mean, it's totally sad that many of us, I mean, we're all as descendants of enslaved people here in the U.S. We are basically, colonized people on this kind of colonized land. And sometimes we don't grow up really understanding that so much, but then you go through this process of like uncovering it, and it's like it's a whole dissonance that's happening. And I think for some Black folks, especially black women, sometimes we grown up where that was the whole process. What was to do is you had your hair natural, but then you were taught to kind of like, you know, change your hair, chemically straighten it and stuff like that. And then many people in the last, whatever, how many years, it's been about 10 years or something, there's been more of a kind of going back to natural hair that of course started in the 60s and stuff, but more recent, then it stopped. And then, but more recently, there's been kind of a resurgence of that. And it's a process of learning how to take care of your hair kind of, and it makes me think, so there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, but I also think of like Imani's video, what I love, one of the many things I love about it is it's got this kind of future and past thing going on at the same time. And I think about like this kind of Afrofuturist thing and thinking about Sun Ra and all this is like, there is this kind of collapse. Like with Sun Ra, he's often kind of talking about like ancient Egypt, but he is talking about space and the future. And so I think, so you guys see what I'm doing. I try to weave all of this stuff together. I don't even know sometimes if it's really totally making sense, but I'm trying to do it. I'm like, I'm gonna jump from this hair thing, and now we're gonna talk about Sun Ra and ancient Egypt. I don't know. Please help me get there, Imani. I think it's something about collapsing time and space. And I love how you were talking about, you know, like, let's just move on to another planet. Like, let's just get there some kind of way. Can you help us get there?
Yeah, so
A small ask.
I mean, essentially, like what, talking about just like space travel and like
Yeah,
black.
that sounds good right now. Let's do some space travel. Let's go somewhere else.
Yo, you know what? Like, am I on mute? Okay, no. Like, I'm like trying to manifest it, but you know, in a lot of ways.
Or maybe like how your work is through cinematography, how that's going there too in some kind of way, because it's a reason why you chose that kind of that mode of operating, right? So maybe that can be a way also.
I mean, yeah, no, totally. I think that there's this, yeah, I think like, so the interest there is like, you know, like you mentioned a minute ago about like, you know like there's moments in it where it feels like the future and the past. And I think that, yeah, absolutely. Like, and it's intentional. And I think that that comes from like literally, and I don't know, I think Black people are just from the future and the past already. I think we're like, that's just who we are. We're from the future and the past. And like, once that's realized, like fully, right? Like, damn, like once, I mean, excuse me, like, you know, once we're just like, you know, like once that's fully realized, it's just limitless. And I think, you know, that also comes from practices like archiving, like family photo albums, like just having physical, you know, mediums like that are like physical, and like practices and rituals that are physical, that, you know, becomes part of, like, becomes an extra stitch in our DNA. And I think that we already are. And I hate to sound like, you know, all philosophical and stuff, but like we already are. And like, you know, I just think it's so incredible, even this space like that we're sharing now as artists, and as artisans and like curators, right? Like it's, you know, are we in the future or the past right now? Even now, it's like, dang, like, you know, I don't know. It's, and also just like, you know, having conversations about, you know, about like memory, and about like, Amber, I think is really incredible, like the work that you're doing around hair, because I mean, I think that like, you know, like archiving this stuff, like, you know, like, you know, archiving it, documenting it, or it's erased or it's gone forever sometimes. And I think also just also like like the idea of like Antoine, like Antoine, you have like this, I think like also in your work too, it, you know, actually, I won't even say, you know, staging things as memory. Like you looked at those things and you said, this is how I'm gonna assemble them, you know? It might seem random to everybody else, but like you knew, like you knew. And like you know what you want to say. And like even if we have our like blockages and our things, like there's things we want to say, and then we just like we do them. We do them. It's like it becomes our ritual. So I just wanted to say, like, I respect everybody's ritual so far, and like being intentional about like you know, this art stuff, and like also just having something that we want to say with the art stuff. I think that's already, we're already like, you know, in the future with it, because now like there's more conversations to be had. Now there's like, now we're all connected. So like we are like, we're here now, and like in an hour this will be the past, but like now we've cultivated a whole future around just like us as artists um and creatives. I hope that made any type of sense, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that was really wonderful. Thank you. That was really beautiful. You made me think, and I can't remember who said this. If it was Saidia Hartman, I wish I could remember. I gotta go back and find it. But somebody said something. You know, people, we talk about Afrofuturism a lot, and somebody said we should be talking about Afro-presentism, because we are our past and our future. We are living that, because sometimes we keep thinking about like the future in which we can be free, but some of that freedom work is actually of us knowing something about ourselves right now, and we often don't really know it. And when we know it, then we actually start refusing a whole lot of the crap that's coming at us. Actually, we start refusing in a certain kind of way. But a lot of times I think a lot of us brainwashed, and all, it's scary. It's a spectrum of brainwashing that we're under right now as these colonized subjects. But we could talk all night, and I'm going to talk with all of y'all anyway later on, but I know for tonight we kind of hit our moment. But yeah, thank you really all of you for the rich projects you have made for the show, your participation, these discussions. I've had the pleasure of talking one-on-one with you. I hope that people will look at your work. They can find you on Instagram. Of course, you all have websites and stuff. Just really stay tuned. There will be programming with each of these artists right here through the run of the show, which goes through June 6th. So you can definitely learn more about, all of this brilliant stuff that they are undergoing and thinking about. We are already our future. Hello, people. We just have to know it. We really just have to know it. That's the thing. And if we could know it, and I know Antoine is doing that work of teaching these kids that stuff, they really get to them when they're young. So, I mean, you can change when you get older too. You can't change at 40 or 60 or whatever, but it can be real hard. It can be real hard. But we do know that it's a journey and it's a process, like Amber was talking about with the hair and everything, right? So we can get there, and we can accept ourselves, and we can, realize our power through that. People, please do show up next week as well. Christina Sharp, the person that I'm a major fangirl of, and try to stick with her book as much as I could of the principles that she puts forth. She has this idea of wake work. She says it's really hard work. It is hard work to do this. It's not easy, because people can try to act like it's easy. Oh, we're doing this now. This is the thing, but they haven't put any work into it. That's actually like a real popular attitude. It is a commitment to actually caring about Black people. It's a commitment to caring about yourself and other folks, other Black people, other humans. And it is hard ass work. And she talks about that. It's about thinking about those of us who have been murdered and staying with the dead. It's about, working to love ourselves right now and to love ourselves in the future. So I tried to think about this concept that she talks about as wake work, and think about that as a curatorial process. What does that mean? What can I do? What's possible to do? So we're going to be talking with her on Tuesday, March 30th. It's 2:30 to 3:30. It's called Curating as Wake Work. Please join us for that. You can get information about that program. And yeah, I think I just want to say thank you. I'm really honored to be in conversation with each of you.
LaTanya, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, definitely.
Also just I want to just say thank you too for thinking about all of us for this, and like how important it is to, speaking of wake work and intention, and imagining otherwise, and how huge this is, this way of thinking, A, but B, just this thing existing in a physical space, or even in a virtual space, but physical space in Cleveland, Ohio. You know what I mean? At moCa,
Thank you.
Phenomenal, and important. And yes, absolutely. And just everything is just feels so intentional. I'm just so proud of everything that you've pulled together for this. And proud that you did, something like this for like the Midwest. It's considered the Midwest, right? Y'all consider yourself the Midwest.
Yes,
Cleveland.
thank you.
Anyway,
Thank
so
you,
yeah,
Imani.
it's a big deal, and yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. Yeah, really thanks to all of you. I'm gonna see if we can pull up the Eventbrite information for the next program, and really just stay tuned, because I don't have the program thing in front of me. I should, but I don't have it right in front of me. But Antoine will be doing a workshop with youth. Well, you're gonna be doing two things, I think, right, Antoine? Amber's gonna be doing a workshop with collage, which we didn't actually even really talk about in here, but we kind of touched on it in terms of the assembly ideas of thinking about making. But that's a new process that Amber's kind of been working through, and she's going to be doing a hands-on workshop later on with folks, and also with Shelly, actually one of the sitters, the one person we saw, that gorgeous picture with the hot pink blazer on. Shelly will be part of that. Shelly's into storytelling, so I think that's going to be a really interesting workshop. So definitely stay tuned for that. That will be a physical workshop that will happen. And Imani will be back as well, doing a program, and a discussion with another filmmaker. So we have amazing stuff coming up. So yes, just remember, we are our future. I just want to remember that we are our past, we are our present, we are our future already. And we really got to realize our power. A lot of it is like Imani, it's no mas, right? We just got to know, we just say no more. We aren't doing that no more. We are going to realize our power. So thank you to all you good humans. I really do. I do admire you a great deal. And yeah, I just look forward to seeing more of your work.